Welcome everybody to another episode of the Apostates. I won't be, alone today, but we're going to have some staggered entrances here and there. But I thought I'd want to start right off the bat before we get into the meat of the episode, talking about just how much I hate Jerome Powell in general, because of his sort of one-man crusade to cause a recession, specifically. He raised the interest rates again by 0.25% right after what happened with Signature Bank and SVB. And of course, there wasn't a massive bank run or anything like that. Things seemed to be under control, but thankfully, despite that, there wasn't any big crush to the economy, but Jerome Powell decided it was time anyway to hello, Dallas.
I'm assuming Jerome Powell did some dumbass shit as you've always wanted to inform me of.
I hate that man. He increased interest rates another 25
Why would
25 basis points. And, especially after everything that happened with SVB and Signature Bank, and especially with the fact that interest rates have been going down steadily for the past, I think, 8 months, 6 months.
Yeah,
something.
and so he just decided, you know what, everything's too easy. Let's just fuck it up for everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. So I hate that man. I really, like Richard Attenborough in Jurassic Park staring at the screen. I really, really hate that man. It's, that's just really, there's not much to say. I think he's on a one-man crusade to cause a recession so he can discipline labor and basically make sure that wages stop going up. It has been the first time that wages have actually gone up for working class people in, I think, 40 years.
And all I know is I'm waiting. I love the people at my job. It's just right now I am waiting on my cost of living adjustment, and I swear to God, if Powell fucks that up for me, I will probably end up in debt to my local conjure lady for the rest of my life for what I may request if he screws up my cost of living adjustment.
I think that there's going to be basically me and him have basically a blood feud at this point.
And honestly, and the fact that we're not France, we don't decide, you know what, we're just going to continue doing things like making sure people get their trash collected or things or their electricity, but honestly, fuck the company that has us do that.
I would say that I think there are many ways in which we could learn from the French. Public outrage is one of them. I'm just saying that Macron is lucky that the worst thing he faced was a vote of no confidence.
Yeah, because honestly,
French history.
Yeah, the fact that they did not decide, you know what, we're just going to park a trash wagon in front of his house forever.
Oh man!
I mean, they could still, they could still do that.
Yes, they could. The protest season is young.
Exactly. So, it's not even summer yet. They could do that. I wouldn't be shocked. If there was a pool available, I'd say, you know what, $5 on them parking a garbage truck in front of the presidential palace.
So, I mean, speaking of presidents and public outcry and possibility of consequences, I guess we didn't really talk about it last week. I guess we should talk about how Trump predicted that he would be arrested last week.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I decided to put the alcohol in the fridge anyway, but note I didn't put it in the freezer. I put the vodka in the freezer. But I had a feeling that since he's the only one that said anything, And all New York did was, okay, if y'all gonna act like that, we're just gonna put up some barricades and we'll wait, we'll see.
I mean, part of me believes that they may have held off on an indictment. There's the possibility exists that Trump did have some inside information. But the other possibility exists is that he is a perennial promoter.
Yeah.
And he likes making events out of things.
Yeah.
And he just, maybe decided now's the time to get ahead of this and get the outrage wagon on my side beforehand and get people riled up. Because he's got this feeling that the walls are closing in on him. Now, I do not believe that man will spend a single minute behind any bars. Because you do not get to that level of wealth, forgetting about even if he was president, but if you are that wealthy, the only time you end up behind bars is if you accidentally confess to a murder on microphone.
Or you steal from other rich people or people richer from you. If you steal from people richer than you, then you might see prison, because at that point you're messing with other rich people's money, and in the United States, that's a no-no.
Elizabeth Holmes was given her sentence not because she ripped off her customers, but because she ripped off her investors. That is what her conviction is. And Bernie Madoff ripped off other wealthy people. And I know there are people who he ripped off weren't wealthy, but many of the people he ripped off were.
In other words, it's not really a crime till you either rip off the government or rich people.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
I mean, that's the only reason why regular people is finding the whole crypto thing amusing, because we're watching rich people fuck over other rich people, and that shit is always funny. It's why my roommate loves American Greed, because rich people ripping off rich people, always funny.
It really is. I've enjoyed this crypto thing from afar for years. And it was fun investing $15 or whatever in Dogecoin at the time because of the meme or whatever. But
it's really, like a little bit of crypto, just a little bit, like a little touch, a soupçon of crypto. That's cool. But people who made it their whole identity, man, fuck you.
Yeah, it's basically, I feel like cryptocurrency and vape shops occupy this kind of douchebag universe together, where they all arose at the same time, and they're probably going to disappear at the same time.
No, people are always going to want something to smoke.
Yeah, but I still think vapes are going to disappear.
I don't know. For some people, vaping has just become too convenient.
I remember I was years ago, I was in this band, and we had band practice in the bass player's basement. Our keyboard player brought the boyfriend or just dude that she was with, and he kept vaping the whole time in this basement with no ventilation. And I threatened to beat the shit out of him with my guitar if he didn't go outside.
My bestie vapes, but the thing is, she'll do it at Ren Fair, which unfortunately is closing this weekend. Sad. She'll do it at Ren Fair, but Ren Fair is outside. If you're vaping out, she'll vape outside. And I guess it's
outside, and you keep your cloud to a minimum, you're fine.
Yeah, those are those 1 in a million considerate vapors who are well, since we outside, I'm gonna stand over here and create my small cloud of shame, or my small cloud of glory, whatever it is. Hey, vape away, fam. Do what you need to. I do. That's the time when no one has a problem with a vapor. But it's when you get inside and I'm sir, is that really necessary? I'd rather just smell a Marlboro. I'd rather just inhale a cloud of Marlboro smoke at this point.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know. It's like a douchebag comedy. It's like Most 85% of vapors are unfortunately providing a douchebag mating call.
Yeah.
Just
And
only 85%, not all of them.
But I mean, really, to go back to Trump, like that man has singularly created this focus among Jim Jordan and his weaponization of government committee upon claiming that this prosecution of him is politically motivated. And dude, you are the people that had 4 committee hearings, not hearings, I'm sorry, but 4 entire investigations of Benghazi.
Ghazi, yeah, I'm like, do we really want to do this? Do we really want to dig Hillary Diane out of her restful retirement to have her read everybody down? Is this what we want out of our life? I know that's not who we are. Well, no, it is 100% who we are. We love that shit. But I'm just sitting here like, we did this already. And what I'm living for though right now is the fact that the Manhattan DA, when they tried to summon him, he's like, do you even have the range for this conversation? I honestly believe you don't. Come back when you do.
I certainly agree with him on issues of sovereignty. I don't know that I agree that. I don't know if I agree in principle that asking for a DA to appear based on an investigation of a president is inherently off limits if it's a state DA. But I definitely do agree that there's no good faith here. And so, like, does it lack a legitimate legislative purpose? I don't know that it doesn't, but I don't trust that they have one.
Yeah. It's their way that since so far these things have been closed, and that wrong day of the week leak of a potential arrest was the closest thing Trump's people got to a leak. My guess is they're trying to get their grubby little hands on the item so that they can save their boy.
Ultimately, too, the idea that it is a partisan witch hunt, it also is kind of dispelled by the existence of the Georgia investigation.
Yeah.
If this were pure partisan politics, then why is an investigation being undertaken under a Republican governor by a Republican?
But I'm gonna tell you right now, the Republican dominated legislator of the state of Georgia is trying to shut that shit down by subjecting DAs to the legislature, which, you know, subjecting the elected by the people DA to the whims of the legislature, which just is smacking of Jim Crow 2.0a. Like, we know that the electorate of Atlanta is mostly BIPOC. It is. That's just what it is. They wanted Fannie Willis. They got Fannie Willis. And now they're like, I don't know about all that. She seems a little uppity investigating the president. Let's find a little way to get her to slow her shit down.
And they're doing it one state over too. I mean, they've got their new 2-tiered court system.
Oh, God, yeah. Mississippi, I swear to God, Mississippi will never beat the charges that add goddamn to its name.
Well, I mean, the idea of a 2-tier justice system is kind of just right on the nose for them. Because it's funny, because the people in Congress, like Jim Jordan, they are using the accusations like, we have a 2-tier justice system in America. No shit, Jim.
But the thing is, now that the 2-tier justice system may actually end up is keeping their little beer hall push 2.0 prisoners in the DC jail where they motherfucking belong. Now y'all got a problem. And the thing is, most of the incarcerated rioters, traitors, insurrectionists, I said what I said. Most of them, they have amenities that the regular Black, brown, indigenous, that regime over there who had like maybe half a nug of weed are simply not getting. They're not getting access to a tablet.
Well,
they're not getting a.
How's everybody doing tonight?
well, we'll finish our thought.
Yeah,
We're good. We're good, Eric.
We're
Thank
gonna
you for
we're gonna
joining
stick
us.
a pin in that.
We're gonna finish our thought for just a second and just say that the January 6th defendants should be lucky they're not in a Louisiana prison,
and they should be lucky that they're not hanging off the end of a damn rope.
And on top,
I said what I said.
On top of which, it's really, really nice that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, all those people making the visits to the prison, are suddenly so concerned about prison conditions. I am too. I don't think that prison should be a place of torture.
It shouldn't.
So let's work on that. Let's work on that, Marjorie. Let's work on that.
But no, those are white people. They don't. They torture is not for them.
Yeah, seriously, come on. Like, you know, I'm a little pale here. I don't get, we don't get tortured here. Come on now, guys.
Yeah, you know, it's privilege.
Enhanced interrogation, Eric.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Y'all don't get that shit. People don't get that either. Y'all ain't subject to that shit either.
So that's just some weird stuff that sometimes we do with our mistresses, and you know that's called something different.
And y'all need to start paying. Y'all, I swear. Y'all probably do not pay sex workers enough.
No, clearly not.
Clearly not. So, yeah.
Now,
hi, Eric.
Yeah.
Since you are here, us to take a moment and floor and
all right.
Oops.
I feel like I'm probably freezing here, which is probably a good thing. So now you'll just get one out every 3 words, and maybe you'll piece together what.
Yeah.
Look, today is actually a somber day for me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
Today marks 3 years since the passing of my father, who, to say he was my best friend, and it really doesn't do justice to the term. Like, he was a lot more than that. He like guided me so much. You know, I've talked about it on here before how he like molded my perspective on a lot of things and taught me to challenge the narrative, challenge what you're being presented. And like, you know, because a lot of people take things at face value. Like, you know, as I sit here and I drink a glass of, well, rum with a splash of Coke, my not my first adult beverage of the day, and wearing his hat that he left behind, you know, it's weird because, like, you know, my wife a few weeks ago asked me what it felt like, you know, because look, it was an average Thursday. My dad and I used to like to go for walks on Wednesdays. Like, that was my day. I'd go there after work. And that year, it rained on that Wednesday, and he just said, "Hey, why don't you come over on Thursday instead?" So Thursday, March 26th, 2020, I come over. We go on a nice long walk. Don't think anything of it. Hadn't been sick, you know. If we had a health contest between me, 2 of my closest friends, and my dad, we'd have all been fighting for second because he'd have been the healthiest one of us. Him being a good 30 years older than the 3 of us. So later that night, as you guys know, this isn't my first venture into podcasting. I have some other podcasts that I do, one being a wrestling show that I would do on Thursday nights. And this is the week before WrestleMania. And I was trying to catch up on the show, watch the product. And I hear out of the distance, as I'm in my man cave, I hear our house phone ring. And I think, it's kind of odd. Nobody calls that number. Like, what, do we got a telemarketer calling us? And I hear my wife answer, and I could tell there was some trouble in her voice, and I didn't quite know, you know, anything about what was going on. She comes in and she tells me, "Eric, turn off the TV." And I look at her, I'm like, Come on, hon, I got a podcast in an hour. Like, I'm trying to catch up on stuff. What do you want from me? And she says, no, Eric, you need to turn this off. And she's like, it's your dad. I'm like, what'd he do? And it was always tradition when I left my dad's, I was always supposed to text him when I got home to let him know that I was home safe. And I would inevitably almost always forget because I'm a forgetful guy. And he texted me around about an hour and a half after I'd left, me like, "Yo, you all right?" And so I texted him, said, "Yeah, sorry, I got home all right. I love you." The last things I said to him, "I love you," and I'm glad those were the last words I said because I did know that he did get that message. He let Laura know that I gotten home all right, and that then I loved them. And so when she comes in and Jody tells me, she's like, "Eric, turn off your TV. It's your dad." I go, "What'd he do?" Because my dad was a little mischievous like me. I get it honestly. And she goes, "No, he had a heart attack. He died." And I go, "The fuck out of here." That was my reaction. And I said, "I just talked to him like an hour ago." She's like, "Yeah, it just happened." And, since then, my wife has told me that when Bar called, she told my wife, "You have to tell him." She's like, "I can't." And I know how hard that must have been for my wife to have to do that. And I know there was a lot of concern that she had that I would harbor some resentment because she was the one that told me. I, I, she did notice. She said afterwards that something came over me, that I all of a sudden had this laser focus, and I was able to get her to the hospital, the Paoli hospital where my dad was taken, and I got her there pretty easily. I called my mother and told her to go over to my sister's house to tell her. So my mom did not tell her that. My mom just told her that he was taken to the hospital. So my wife called my sister, and right away my sister, "How's he?" She's like, "No, you don't understand. Like, he's gone." Her reaction was, I think, more authentic than mine. Like, mine was very like detached. I didn't feel like I was really in my own body. She threw the phone, and which I think is a natural reaction. Um, and one of the things, and I want to tie this back into what we like to talk about here on the show, and that's important to me that as I talk about this, that I tie this in because this is what we do here. Um, I promised my dad, I stood over his body, and I promised him, I said, "Dad, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to keep going. But just between me and you, I want you to know I don't want to." And I've kept that fight up. And I do believe, knowing him and knowing what he stood for as a person, that he would want me to stand up and fight for the injustices that I see in this world, um, the improprieties that I see, the inequities that are going on in this world, and in particular in a party that I spent a good portion of my life being affiliated with. And so I continue this fight. I will always continue this fight. And I'll continue it in my dad's memory and my dad's honor. Because this was a guy who I know voted for three Democrats, excuse me, in his life. The last of which being a Clinton, which I know that had to pain him so much as a registered Republican to do. But he just absolutely could not vote for that other guy. I don't even want to refer to by his name because you don't represent my party, sir. Um, And the other two were, I know I mentioned before, like Goldman. I think it was his first election because it was like already coming out about Nixon trying to like break into the Democratic Party. Like all that stuff was kind of well known if you knew what was going on in the world of news, um, which a lot of people didn't, but he did. And then the other one was Barack Obama. He loved Obama, thought he was just a sincere and honorable man. He said, even though I can disagree with his politics, he's a dude. And that was like, if you knew my dad, that's the way he talked. He would just say that guy's just a dude. And he's like, I can get behind that. Even if I don't agree with his politics, I can get behind him because he stands for his convictions. So yeah, that's how my day's been, guys.
I can just say that having spent, unfortunately, not nearly enough time in your dad's presence, he was a good man in a world that I think maybe 30% of people are good. He was in the top of that tier.
And it's funny, maybe because he was my father, and I've had such a great example. And I know you did too. I know you and your father have a wonderful relationship.
Just talked to him yesterday, and
Love that man.
yeah,
Great. Now I realize I got to call my dad when
Yes,
after the
yes.
show.
Nothing else. Any of our viewers, nothing else. But take
My
this from my
yeah
story. Call your dad.
yeah my father is the absolute opposite of my mother. My father is a socialist, so socialist and an atheist, and he married a holy roller Baptist
Oh
because
wow.
love is weird, man. Love is
Yeah.
weird. Love is weird.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because my dad, as much as my mom would try to tell me that my dad was a believer in God, and I've had my, let's just say since this day 3 years ago, I've had my issues with God and with the grieving process.
Of course.
Um, but my dad used to always tell me, he said, "Man, you might as well treat it like this is the only run you got because you don't know what comes next." And anybody who tries to tell you they know, they
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and that's something that that's something that I deal with and I wrestle with,
Sure.
considering, in when I was diagnosed, I consider my diagnosis with diabetes was a traumatic experience.
Sure.
So, I mean, the day before I ended up going into the hospital, I don't know like that previous night. I'm 90% certain if I'd have gone into full, because I did not fall asleep completely.
Hmm.
If I had fallen asleep completely, I probably may not have woken up. That's where I was. But yeah, for me, it's more, I know that I have to, it's things like this that force me to realize that I have to live my life in a sincere fashion.
Hmm. Well, and I think back to like that day. Like I said, my dad and I went on long walks, usually on Wednesdays. That week, Wednesday was a rainy day. He texted me and said, "Why not come on Thursday, the 26th of March?" And I did, and we went on a nice long walk. And I remember thinking that whole day, man, you know what? I'm kind of tired. Work's been kicking my ass. Like, maybe I ought to just text him and be like, we'll just do this next week. And in hindsight, I'm really glad I didn't, because that would have been rough.
Yeah.
Because my cousin was supposed to play tennis with him that day, and he said, "Oh, I can't today. How about tomorrow?" And so
Oof.
they were supposed to go the next day. And this is something he talked to me about recently that he's still having a lot of issues with because he was very close with my dad. Anybody who knew like, if you knew my dad, he had a way, like, I know, Red, you know, how he had a way of bringing you into his circle. Like, he made you feel like a part of it.
he certainly made me feel welcome
Yeah.
when I have a lot of issues believing I'm not welcome. That's a personal thing with my brain. Like it just is how my brain
Yeah.
functions. I tend to not believe it when people
Yeah.
appreciate me. And he always made me feel like I was appreciated. So
And without getting into any specifics, because I don't know how much you want revealed on air, but I know when I told him some
Yeah.
things about you. His first thought was, I just hope Ren's happy.
Yeah.
I just want Ren to be happy, like, because they're important to you, and you're important to me, and they're important to me because like if my dad knew you, he loved you. Like that's just how he was.
I remember. I still remember that Super Bowl between the Cardinals and
Yes, the
who the
Steelers.
fuck else. Yeah. And I remember that was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had,
Yeah,
just with friends, in my life. He was very, very warm and welcoming, and just, man.
well, and again, like that brings me back to the Super Bowl that I got to experience the Eagles winning against the Patriots. When I like, look,
Glory be.
football is like a
I
big thing
was
for me. And the fact is that, I got to experience that. I always imagined what that moment would be like, and that I got to hug him and, again, tell him I loved him. And, I apologize if this is coming across too raw to anybody, but if it's offending you, too bad.
no. This is raw feeling and reaffirming the love and the bond. It's a legit part of grieving. It's a legit part of breathing life back into the memory.
And it's funny because I always start to like the last couple of years. I've started to think, oh, I think I'm gonna make it. I think I'm gonna be okay. I'm not gonna fall apart anymore. And that tends to happen right around his anniversary, and then it's all shot to hell. Like I mean,
Well, I don't know, you know, what it's like losing a parent.
all I can say is
But
it's different than whatever you would think. It's just different. Like I don't know. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like
That's
my
fair.
wife asked me recently because she didn't. She says to me, she's like, I don't know what that felt like for you. I said honestly, and not that I spent a whole lot of time ever thinking about what that would be like, but of course, like I did, like every now and then, like man, what's it gonna feel like when I get that call? Because there's an old saying: in times of peace, sons bury fathers; in times of war, fathers bury
Very
sons.
sons.
And that always, and like I understood, and I've said that many times that I understood that was the natural order. Like I'm supposed to someday bury him, and I understood that, and I was okay with that in the concept until it came time.
Yeah,
And again, the laser focus kicked in, and it was just I don't know, like something came over me where I was just like, okay,
yeah, right.
I can't be focused on the grief yet. And I
Yeah,
kept saying, like, not yet. Like, you got all day tomorrow to fall apart, but right now,
yeah,
I have to be strong. And
yeah. Right now, my father recently turned 80.
mhm,
We're starting the death cleaning at the house.
yeah,
We're starting the death cleaning. This is a man who's 80,
yeah,
who had a brand new kidney installed, but I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid, and I don't have a lot of illusions here. He has well outlived his average.
sure.
So for me, it's like it's theoretical. It's still like you explained, it's still a theoretical
Hmm.
situation, but as we go through old magazines, go
Sure.
through old plastic models, do you want to keep this? Do you want to get rid of it? Prepping stuff that we know we're going to have to list this shit on eBay because
Oh,
it's in good condition
so
and
I
we need,
walked through my stepmother's house today,
yeah.
and like, and I know, like, you know, she's a heavy smoker. She's in her
Mhm.
70s, and all
Mhm.
I keep thinking is, okay, that's going on eBay. Okay, that's going to come
Yeah.
with me. That reminds me of her. I'll keep that. And
Yeah, we're
that's
looking
pretty
at
good.
all
I'll
the
keep that. Okay, that's
yeah, we're
going on eBay.
like
Yeah,
this collection of Jane's Defense Weekly, we can toss that. Nobody really does that shit
right.
anymore. But his Japanese aircraft magazines, nah, that shit's going on eBay. It's all in good
Hmm.
condition. We'll sell it in proper lots and all the rest of it. But we're starting to realize, okay, we got to clean. There's shit we got to start prepping. And I admit it. Part of me is intimidated right now because that man has accumulated a lot of shit.
Oh,
but
and my wife and I actually just spent a year living at my stepmother's house, and which was weird too. But man, the stuff every day, and I would always be like, man, I looked at my grandparents' house, and when my dad and stepmother, my aunt went through all that, I thought, man, I hope, I'm glad Dad and Laura aren't going to leave me with that stuff. And then I look around, I'm like, oh no, boo-boo, you're gonna have to go through some shit.
Yeah, so it's like I know that there's stuff that I'm like, I know, and then there's some stuff that I know I'm gonna cling on to just out of sentiment. Me and my dad had matching bucket hats from London Fog.
Nice.
Yeah, we're that is not.
Yeah, that doesn't go anywhere. Absolutely.
Yeah, the matching bucket hats.
Any of my dad's comic books or records ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that'll be my advice to anybody. Anything that you think that you would want, you should hold on to. Like I said, I'm wearing my dad's hat right now. You know why? Because it makes me feel close to him.
Yeah, because like I said, me and my dad got matching bucket hats. My mom's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "He bought me one."
Eric, if I were near you right now, I would buy you a beer or four. I'd give you a hug. I'd order
it.
And we would have a night. Cheers.
Sláinte.
To the old man.
To the old man.
To all of our old men.
To all of them.
Oh, fuck it. Skull.
Well, what was it you used to say when we were at Charlie Brown's, Eric?
To hell. May the stay be as fun as the journey.
Oh, nice one. Nice one.
I miss Charlie Brown's.
Yeah, they turned that into some micro brewery.
Yeah, I've been there.
Part of me would be excited about that, but part of me sounds like that just sounds like bullshit.
No, right. It's called Mackenzie's, and they have 3 locations that I know of, and it's actually surprisingly good for that kind of bullshit kind of play.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I was working at Vanguard, a bunch of people were like, "Hey, let's go over to Mackenzie's." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, that's right by where my parents live." And I didn't even realize they had another Mackenzie's close by. Because when I get to that Mackenzie's by my parents, there's nobody from my work there. I'm like, "Where the fuck is everybody?" And
then you found out.
God, I can't believe they would go to the one closest to work and not closest to my parents' house. What the hell?
Yeah.
So
you're just sitting there like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm thinking I get blown off, and meanwhile, all of a sudden I look down at my phone, I got 17 text messages. Eric, where the hell are you? Come on over. I'm like,
did you go to the other one?
Yeah, I did probably go to the other one. And I went there. I'm just like, what the hell? I was at Mackenzie's looking like an asshole.
I mean, in fairness, that Mackenzie's was close to another Vanguard campus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they said. They're like, okay, fine, Eric. And it's funny because we were all moving over to that campus eventually. They said, okay, Eric, we promise the first Friday that we're over at the other place, we'll go to your Mackenzie's.
It's pretty nice.
Nice.
So, I think there's something I've been wanting to talk about lately on the show about TikTok. Specifically, look, I don't get the dances. I'm not young anymore. I'm not with it. I'm not hip. In fact, nobody even uses those phrases anymore. That's how not with it I am.
Yeah, it's so not hip that I don't even realize we don't say not hip anymore.
It's something the kids do.
Hipsters ruin hip.
And I get it. It's like the Gen Z version of Vine is basically my understanding of it. And for those of you kids, Vine was the social network, really, where it was just you'd have these 7-second videos that
7 seconds of hilarity.
Oh man, Darius Benson was the king of Vine, and you should all look him up because, well,
he's
I don't know,
entertaining as shit. Is what he
totally
is.
Entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, he's still on YouTube. He does these things where he just does skits where he plays every character. Love him. If you've ever heard the meme, the whole surprise motherfucker meme, That's him.
That's him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Greatest. So he was the Vine dude. So I get Vine. I don't get TikTok. I mean, I get it, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm sure people have a point that there's concerns about security, information, the fact that the Chinese government owns a stake in it. But what I find supremely disingenuous is the fact that we are going to ban it because of the potential security risks and potential data leaks, because of the possibility that a state might collect some of this information from TikTok. Have we
And
not seen what the United States government has gotten from
on us.
AT&T after the Patriot Act, through the NSA and their surveillance program? What happens when police departments just request information from Ring, the doorbell cameras, from
Right.
Amazon, from Facebook, and all of the times that there have been massive data breaches from Twitter, the fact that they're under consent decree.
I think even like below the line social networks have been going through the same thing. I think at least in the period of time I've been on FetLife, there have been at least 2 or 3 fucking data meltdowns, 2 or 3 fucking bullshit people finding people's information, and yet no one said anything about that. But then again, it's people who are below the line, below the fold, therefore we don't matter. But it's kind of just, to me, it's like we could actually enact proper data protections like the EU, but we just refuse to, because I think we just don't want, what it is I think we don't want, the powers that be don't want another digital public square.
They also won a war with China, specifically.
I don't know why.
And it's not just the Republicans.
We're gonna lose because we're gonna just run out of bullets. You know, they're like freaking replicators, man.
I just think that it's not even just the Republicans, although it's primarily Republicans, but many Democrats too are really pushing. I mean, Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. Why now? Why was that important to do now, specifically?
She could have waited. She's not speaker anymore. She could have waited.
Maybe she wanted to get away from her husband. I don't know. A little break, get a little away, get to Thailand. I don't know. I hear it's lovely this time of year.
I just don't have any patience for this sudden concern with the security of TikTok because of China, when we know that Facebook and other, and Amazon and all these other companies have shared information with our own government whenever the government has asked. I mean, you hear sometimes where Apple will fight a subpoena to unlock one of their phones, but that is like a
rare.
That is one of those situations where they don't want people to be able to break into their phones. That is not because of
white dude that they're trying to protect.
Yeah, it is not because of a principled stand against government.
No, they want
to protect their tech.
They want to protect fucking Samsung from figuring shit out.
Yeah, they want to make sure they still have the curve on the technology.
So that's really what it is, and it's disgusting to me the way that we are positioning ourselves as so antagonistic towards China. And I get it. China is not our friend.
No, and it's fine that we recognize that, but that doesn't mean you got to pick a fight with them.
That part.
We are deliberately antagonizing China and it's especially...
It's unnecessary.
And especially irritating coming from a party who are constantly now talking about how all of these, forever wars are unnecessary and things like that. Is, listen, 20 years ago, this month is the 20-year anniversary of our invasion of Iraq. And it's a war that I supported 20 years ago because I believed the lies that I was told. I don't have an excuse for it. I don't have any kind of,
Well, at least somebody who's sitting there saying now, in hindsight, oh, I never supported that war. Bullshit. There
Shit,
are so
that's
many damn people who
yeah. A
supported that war,
lot of people supported that. A lot of people
and
supported
then
the
they all
invasion of
Everybody but
Iraq.
everybody
ran
but
and said,
Barbara
no,
Lee.
I didn't.
Everybody but Barbara Lee,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Or actually, that was the original authorization of use of force for Afghanistan. I'm confused the two, but all the same, it was still a lot who supported Iraq.
Yeah,
Well,
a
and
lot
that
of
was
people.
part of the package of what we were sold about Iraq. Hey, we understand that yes, they're warring factions of the same religion, and so it wasn't Iraq that attacked us on 9/11, but
Yeah,
the next 9/11 is
it's
going to come
going to
from
be
Iraq. And
Iraq.
so they said, "Hey, we were criticized for not acting before. This is us acting now on the next
Now
threat."
it was like, oh, this is a preemptive. This is
Right.
preemptive, and trust us, it's going to be worth it. And now we're realizing
They
we
have
have
weapons of mass destruction. Never mind that the weapons inspectors never found anything. Never mind that we're not going to give them a chance to keep looking. I mean, we had intelligence that said they had these weapons, but even though we told them where these weapons would be, they never found anything. Never mind all that. They have weapons, we think. So let's go in there.
Probably.
I believe that stupid shit. And
I did too.
I mean, I have to live with the fact that I supported the invasion of a country that resulted in hundreds of thousands of
A lot of people.
and these people are coming out now who definitely, like Tucker Carlson, who definitely supported the war too, pretending that they never did. And
right,
now
it's convenient now to
they're
say, "Oh yeah,
they're positioning themselves as anti-war, and yet are pushing so hard against China because they do want us.
They want a war. They just don't want a war. In other words, they are hoping that China is the same paper tiger that Russia has turned out to be.
It's not.
And I'm not that confident in this little assertion. I'm really not.
Well, and part of the problem when you assert that with China is you discount the sheer volume. And I know I jokingly earlier said we'd run out of bullets if we fight, but like,
But we would.
Kidding, but we absolutely would.
We would.
That's part of the problem. Russia didn't have because Russia basically lost an entire generation because of World War II. China didn't lose those people. China just been multiplying, man. Like fuck, like they're like
they might have lost people during. They might have lost people during the Great Leap Forward. They might have lost people during the Cultural Revolution. They might have lost people due to Tiananmen Square, but they got them people back,
and then some.
And then some. In other words, the one-child policy didn't really reduce their population. It just brought it into a proportion that that's going to put them in an advantage for war because they've got an excess of men.
Yeah.
They have an excess of men to the point where China's little...
Men. What are we going to do with them? I'm fucking nope. Send them to war.
Like, there's an excess of men. Like, you can... Like, at one point, China was like, you know what? Fuck it. If you go into Africa and you meet a nice woman with a good family and her family has a lot of land because land is matrilineal in Africa, in parts of Africa, and she's not fat or too dark. Yes, that was kind of similar to what they said. Marry her. For them to say that, in countries that they had business interests, in parts of Africa, in parts of the Caribbean, there was already a Jamaican Chinese population. Guess what? I will not be shocked if it starts to grow again.
Oh no, it probably will.
This is just all the more reason why this increased hostility towards China and antagonism.
It's a dumb fucking idea.
And coming from the people who claim to be anti-war.
What party prospers the most from a conflict?
Fortunately, it's the Republicans.
Yeah,
every
because
goddamn
they're the
time.
party that we always entrust with these battles, and because I mean, they are the party that's better. I would say they're they're more ruthless. They're more of assholes. So I guess like
They're more, in other words, they're more willing to be racist and kill people.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I
worked
guess
before.
that's the gist of what I'm going with.
It's worked before. It so that's where I think that this
So
entire
that's why I think they have that antagonistic approach, is because that will like that enhances their party, that gives them a better chance, and saying, "Hey, look, we're the party that we want to protect our borders. We want to,
and
yeah,
they may
yeah,
not wish for an actual ground war, but they want increased hostility because increased
yes,
hostility increases patriotism and
Increases size of the contract to
and
increases money to defense
America."
contractors.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, except I mean, come on, all those contractors, all that military budget, it's all going to woke programs, right? Because the military is woke, right? It kind of it just
I
kind
don't even.
it just kind of reminds me of DeSantis going around and talking about how the reason crime is so high in Chicago is because of woke policing. The police in Chicago are woke.
In what you? Okay, what do you want, Ronald? Ronald Dion, what do you want? What do you want them to just simply see a black person after midnight and shoot them? Is this what you want? Do you want us to bring back sundown towns? Do you want us to bring back, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing, baby?
He
You've already
want
wanted,
all that, yeah.
huh?
He probably does want all that.
Like,
Look, he's mad because they don't in Homan Square. They're not, basically force feeding their prisoners Ensure.
apparently not. He misses the torture. Mans misses Guantanamo. Mans misses Guantanamo. It's apparent. He probably needs to see a good therapist about it, but we all know Republican men don't do that shit.
I think most people who
no, they have an affair like regular, normal functioning adult men.
What I think the
Have an affair with what though?
I think his
You can fill in the blanks.
I'm sorry, not sorry. I guess that's
We're on
why
the
you
same
shouldn't
page.
let me. I guess this is why I shouldn't be eating while broadcasting. But here we are.
Is it wrong that every time I see somebody either take a swig of something or take a bite of something, my instinctive reaction is I want to say something funny enough to see if they'll spit it out?
All I know is I missed you for last week when we talked about the glass cliff. The glass cliff.
Let's actually talk about that. Let's talk about the glass cliff, and let's talk finally about minor league players and how they are shafted.
Oh my god, minor league baseball players.
Facts, examples.
I could go, like, if I go down to Reading right now, like, I'd have a better chance of picking up a nice girl than somebody who plays in the Reading Phillies, because, my god, those guys are getting paid.
Those motherfuckers ain't got no money.
Exactly. Talk about the keep it cheap program, man.
Like, bruh, they do not pay. Like, minor league players do not get paid. People think, oh, you made AAA, good for you. Where's your Mercedes? He's lucky. He's lucky that his little rice cooker bike is not being repossessed now. Okay, like, and what's worse is that unfortunately, because Florida is a shithole, because Ron DeSantis ain't shit. Major League Baseball, like the rest of Florida, is trying to get a minimum wage increase. This is how little minor league players are getting paid. Minor league players would actually be eligible for that minimum wage increase, but the fathers of the league are all chirping all up in Ron DeSantis' ear since he played baseball at Yale. I don't even know what the fuck that actually means. I said what I said.
I mean, what does that mean? He just wasn't good enough to play Major League Baseball? I mean,
he supposedly got a scholarship, but you went to Dunedin. You're from Dunedin.
Yale doesn't give athletic scholarships.
Excuse me. But yeah, like, I don't even know baseball, but I know you are not that good of a player, sir. But they're leaning into DeSantis's ear and they're telling him, hey, we need a carve out. So Florida is about to raise minimum wage. In other words, my hybrid working black ass may potentially make more than some AAA farm player. Like, I could probably talk one minor league player into us doing an OnlyFans, and that would probably double what he takes home in pay.
Yeah. And it's so sad, like, to think that right now, Mr. I work at a big box store, in Pennsylvania. I definitely make more. I make more than minimum wage, considerably more than minimum wage. And to say that I don't need a college education to do what I do would be
some of these jobs you really don't. They're talking about something called the paper ceiling, and I do feel it. I honestly, I love my job. Is part of the reason why I love my job the fact that I know that with 3/4 of a college degree, I can do it well and competently. That might be part of it.
And look, and I've had jobs where I needed to have a degree in order to have that job.
Facts.
And every time I remember thinking, how many times do I actually use what I learned in college for the job? And the answer is 0. A goose egg, bro.
But here's the thing. I think many of us are actually glad that we got a college education because we learned things about ourselves in and out of the classroom.
Sure.
Like, I really think about the fact that,
I mean, a college education shouldn't just be for employment.
It should be for, and I think that's partially one reason why DeSantis is sneakily expanding a lot of his more censure-based ideas around education, why he's stretching them to include college, because he does not want some white boy from Dunedin or wherever Dunedin or Plant City or wherever the fuck to go to college, find out that anything he learned, that 95% of what he learned at Grove City Christian or wherever the fuck is fucking wrong or was incomplete. He doesn't want that. He does not want that person. He doesn't want that girl who grew up in Naples to go to UCF and find out, maybe I don't have to sit here and be uncomfortable in my skin. Maybe I don't fit into the gender binary. Maybe I don't fit into my actual gender at all. Or somebody coming up and coming to Florida State and or FAMU and realizing, my God, there is a lot of people don't talk about Ocoee. People don't talk about the bombing murder of those civil rights workers on Christmas evening. Yes, there was a bombing that murdered a married civil rights activist couple on Christmas night in Florida. The bombing is still unsolved. In other words, Shocking. In other words, you come up and you learn these things that you may not entirely even learn them in a class. You may learn them because somebody got you cast by Isabel Wilkerson or The Color of Compromise or an Ibram Kendi book or whatever. And then next thing you know, you're looking at your parents across the dining room table, your grandparents across the dining room table, and you about ready to ask them, so is the reason we have this extra 1.5 acres of land here in Ocoee, is that because we took it from a Black person because they wanted to vote? Ron DeSantis does not want that. And that's why I think he's paring shit down. Huh?
banning critical race theory is like just the beginning. Let
Yeah.
alone the fact that it isn't taught anywhere. But I mean, one of the
It's
places
really not.
it is taught is in a law school, and you don't want to teach
Yeah.
basically even people in law school, because you don't want them exposed to the information that maybe a lot of states changed their intestacy laws right after the Civil War to make sure that they could confiscate land from black families and black people.
Sorry. That was like,
I mean, it's a huge...
I mean, I've only taken one law class, but I know exactly, I've seen this happen where a family ends up having to partition the land in a weird way, and then some fucking land concern fucking buys it off of.
And, you know, it's just, I mean, he doesn't want anybody understanding that all of these things that they want to try in the future have been tried in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm thinking about the fact that right now they are talking about limiting information about menstruation. I'm gonna get weird and personal in a minute, all right?
Oh, okay.
That got his attention. I started menstruating in, I want to say fifth or sixth grade, somewhere around that point. I think, you know, in that neighborhood. All I know is that the night before I'd attended a Marlins game. Okay. It was actually, I attended, I think, one of the longest Marlins games in the team's history. It was against the Dodgers. Brett Barbary. That's a name you ain't heard in a minute. Ooh, Jeff Conine. Yeah. I'm old. Like Jeff Barbary, Jeff Conine. So that's how old I am. All I know is the night before I attended a Marlins game. I go to school. I feel funny. I go to the bathroom. Blood. I know what is happening to me. I just don't know what to do about it. I end up sitting in that bathroom for like 25 minutes.
Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Yeah.
What do I do with this information? What do I do with this new ass information that's been handed to me? I know what is going on. I know I am not dying.
Yeah, that seems really weird to me as a man.
Yeah.
It seems really weird that you bleed for 5 days and you don't die. Like that. Yeah. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
But,
I'm like, my tummy.
I was the asshole in health class that would ask that. Like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. How does somebody bleed for 5 days?
5 days and not die?
It means don't fuck with them.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was told. Just don't fuck with them. Like,
my stomach hurts, but it's not the back door, and there's blood, and I know what it is. But what do I do now? What do I do? We don't have a school nurse. Yeah, people don't understand. Everyone talks about, well, why didn't they just go to the school nurse? Not every school has a school nurse. Only a couple states require a school to have a school nurse.
Oh, see, Ren and I went to rich white kid school.
Yeah, if you gotta go to rich white kid school, you're gonna be fine. You will have a school nurse.
Yeah, all the girls in our school, they were good.
I went to a magnet school, which was like in a poor neighborhood, but this was after Hurricane Andrew, so we got bused to a middle class neighborhood, and we did not share faculty. So we did not have.
Oh man! So you had to go to school with all the other like affluent kids, but realize you were not getting the same education as those affluent kids.
And what made it even better was that
Eric, we cannot air this podcast in Florida if you say shit like that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna end up having to register with the state. I will end up having to register with the state and lying about a lot of shit and hopefully, and next thing you know, Ron DeSantis will decide to personally torture me. Of course. See, now we really gonna get banned. See,
I like to find the line and then just push past.
Yeah, you're just like out here like doing Oklahoma drills with the line.
Well, the only way to address the kind of absolute absurdity that is these people's positions is to point out how fucking absurd they are.
Oh no, they did this in other states. They did this in Iowa, and I have never seen men reveal how little they know about female anatomy. I'm like, no wonder straight cisgender women have said, no wonder the orgasm gap exists, because most of these dudes out here thinking, they're like, how dare we give these children tampons? They're going to be ruined by the time. I'm like, are you trying to tell us something about where you are anatomically, sir? If you think a tampon is going to ruin if you think a tampon is going to ruin a still growing 6th grader, what are you telling us about your anatomy, sir? And we would like to take a look at your hard drive. Like, I've never seen so many men reveal their fucking ignorance. And I'm just sitting here like, no wonder y'all don't.
This is why comprehensive sex education is needed in the first place. And, you could go, well, they don't want to hear the statistics about how when you have comprehensive sex education, incidents of STIs go down. Incidents of premarital teen and, like, not premarital, but like teen sex and teen pregnancies go down when you actually,
because sometimes we realize how stupid our classmates are, and we're like, you know what? I'm gonna wait till the unit on masturbation comes up, and I'm gonna take notes, because y'all not worth the time.
Right.
Because I'm sure at least 5 girls or 5 guys looked at their classmates, and I'm like, I'm supposed to have relations with.
Look to your left. Look to your right. Statistically, one of those people is not as intelligent as you are.
And you're gonna and I'm guessing with comprehensive sex education, they realized that at least 5 girls in that classroom looked and said, "These motherfuckers are dumber than me." You know what? I'm gonna wait until that unit on masturbation, because this is bullshit. See, I'm sure I can do this better than they can.
And I'm gonna put a nice little. I'm gonna bring this back to the subject of me and my dad. And
good.
This is great words.
This was a great transition, Eric.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
He had great words of wisdom for me when I was about 14 years old. And I came to, because my dad and I had that kind of relationship. I could just ask him anything I wanted to know, and I knew he would give me an honest answer. And I said to him, I said, Dad, like, if I like a girl, like, what kind of advice should I have? Like, what kind of fatherly advice can you give me to talk to, say, girl that I have interest in? And I'll never forget it. He put his arm around me. He goes, son, I just have to tell you. He's like, and it's the truest, and I mean this with complete sincerity, kiddo. The best advice I ever got in this area was, wrap it before you tap it.
Brilliant.
And those words stuck with me, and I just thought,
brilliant.
Honestly,
Mans didn't even.
That could be the entirety of, like, the unit.
And again, I'm going to sound like Forrest Gump when I say this, but he just had a way of saying things, so I understood them.
Like I said, I'm just sitting here like
I'm going to go with this. Yeah.
That is more sex ed than is allowed in Florida right now.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, in parts of Florida, they're still trying. I know that in my county, which is one of the bluest counties in the state, they're trying to work around the comprehensive sex ed.
If I had a video of my dad saying this, I would not be allowed to play that video in a Florida class.
You may not, depending on the county, depending on the teacher, depending on various other factors. But at this point, a lot of people do not want to be yelled at by some Proud Boy affiliated Karen. So chances are, no, they're not going to play that.
Yeah.
Because face it.
Saying to my dad, look, Dad, it says in the box it's only 97% effective. He looks at me and said, kiddo, you really think you're good enough to be in the top 3%? Come on now, Bob.
Your dad read you. He read you for film.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no,
and then I got my mom's for the weekend and said, good luck, Joan. Have fun with him.
I was lucky in that I grew up in the era of abstinence plus, which meant I actually, like, it was like 45% abstinence, but like 55% actual information.
Yeah.
It was Abstinence Plus that taught me about the sponge. Make fun of that shit all you want to, but
Hey.
if you are broke, or if you have like $20 to spend and you don't want your parents to know you're sexually active, the sponge is your friend.
Look, for $3.25, I could get a pack of condoms at the local drugstore. Don't ask me how I know the exact price.
No, we know. Like I said, it's like I said, it was. I sit here saying that Abstinence Plus probably saved me from a lot of dumb shit. And
Sure.
and the
If
fact
all
that
your
kids
teaching-
are not
If all you're teaching is just abstinence or nothing, you're
Yeah.
going to end up with a lot more pregnant teens.
and kids, while on the
Right.
while on the other
like
hand,
Mike Pence's state where they had what was it, an HIV outbreak? Or,
he wanted people to die. I mean, Mike Pence Mike Pence let out his inner genocidal maniac for that. I don't even give a fuck. I think Mike Pence probably thinks he's not seeing heaven for other things, but honestly, I feel like Mike Pence is not seeing heaven for that. For the fact that he's like, nope, let him die.
I feel like we could
most
actually
people
have an
who
whole
are-
episode about reasons why Mike Pence is not getting into heaven. But
look, not a single person who's been president in my lifetime is going to be in heaven. So,
Yeah.
and I think even if you go back past my lifetime, it's basically just Jimmy Carter.
Carter.
I was going to say only one
I've
of your lifetime.
I've heard great
Yeah.
things about John Quincy Adams.
John Quincy Adams might make the upper reaches of purgatory,
But
if there's
other
such
than
a
that,
thing.
You
What
just
about Lincoln? You think he gets in? Like,
No.
The Dakota Massacre. The Dakota Mass execution saying no.
Okay. No, I mean, I know.
And choosing Johnson as his vice president.
Well, yeah, that's a problem.
I'm like, wait, I need to remind people about that. Like, the man chose a straight up white supremacist as his vice president. That meant that, if anything, if he had been assassinated, even if he hadn't been assassinated, it would have been a very hard uphill battle.
Yeah.
To keep Reconstruction going past his administration. He might have been able to buy Reconstruction another decade or two, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think he would have been able to sustain it.
I think a lot of people, and again, this is the kind of education, there's a reason why they don't want to teach this kind of education, but there is a reason. I mean, Reconstruction had such an incredible success story until the backlash to it. And what we're experiencing now is a backlash. We are experiencing cultural backlash, much like after a decade,
much like in the tail end of Reconstruction. Like, when I look at the fact that we did not have mass executions of Confederate generals after the war, I'm sorry, we should have done it. I don't give a fuck how barbaric it would have been. And then and if they asked why, we would have read out why. I'm sorry, we should. I know people in the South are going to be mad about what I'm about to say. We should have hung Robert E. Lee when it was over. I said what I said. Yeah, we should have hung him. We should have had a wonderful ceremony, read out everything, including all the times that he put brine in his slaves' backs after lashing them.
But he was so kindly. But don't you see?
Kindness can suck a fart out my ass.
Yeah, but like,
hey, funny note about my family's lineage. My family actually is related to Robert E. Lee.
Does that mean you can go find his grave and pee on it?
That's what I understood. My dad said that was frowned upon, but
is it though?
I said I'm just like,
Is it though? I mean, I think at this point your dad would understand.
Oh no,
I think it is important, like that, in situations like that. Maybe when after the next Civil War happens, we can learn our mistakes, and next time we hang the generals and high-ranking officers. We don't
please?
We don't hang the rank and files.
No, absolutely not.
No.
And one of the things my dad always used to say to me, no matter like what dumb, embarrassing thing I did, he'd always say, "Just think, buddy. At least you're not the most embarrassing member of our family." And so I always have that to fall back on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what dads are for, honestly.
Dude, oh man, like, again, we could fill a whole episode with the fun things that, like, if you think my sense of humor is entertaining, it's a shame we couldn't have my dad on the air with us. He would have all of us in stitches. Like, the stories he would tell me about, like, just challenging the social norms, and like the fact that he was in school when they had nuclear bombing drills, like what to do if we were to get nuked, and hide under your desk. And my dad would laugh at the teacher and say, "What the hell makes you think this is going to keep us safe? Boy, just get under the desk. Just do what you're told." Yeah, sure. Like, whatever. I'll get under the desk. I'll do it. But just so you know, like, if a nuclear bomb, like, first off, he lived in Salisbury, Maryland. Can you even find Salisbury, Maryland on a map? Let
How
alone
far is that from
find important
DC?
enough to
I
bomb?
can. It's just south of Delaware.
You're right.
How far is it from DC, though?
About 2 hours or so.
So we're talking what, maybe 100 and something
Yeah, probably about 100
miles?
something. Yeah.
He had a fighting chance. He had a fighting chance.
That's what I told him. I
Not
said,
with the
"Dad,
nukes
I
we
said,
have
if a
now.
nuclear bomb went
I
right
mean,
on
now,
NBC,
but I'm talking
I
about
told
like
him."
the six. If we're talking the 60s, he had a fighting chance. Today, nah, man's vaporized. But
No. I agree with you 100%. But, like, yeah, in the 60s, like, my
he had
dad
a fighting
graduated high
chance.
school in 69.
With,
He
with
might
the
have been
nukes
up
we
there.
have now, the radiation. I mean, he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
He'd be. There's nowhere to go in Salisbury. You can either go north or south, but you can't go east or west.
Why is it on a peninsula?
You better hope you choose correctly. But I wouldn't actually go south, because when you get to that bridge, there's going to be a lot of people trying to escape.
Yeah,
Good luck with
the
that.
Speedway Bridge is freaking bumper to bumper on a normal Friday or Saturday. Imagine if there's like a Holocaust going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
You'd
mean,
have a better chance of getting on 95. That they might.
well,
they might
I
make
live
it
in
worse.
Florida, so I'm just gonna write my last will and testament. So yeah, luckily
You might be
my
able to swim to Cuba or something. That might be, yeah. With all the people that like, remember the stories about El Duque, Orlando Hernandez, and how, like, he was supposedly on some raft that sharks were nipping at.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know if I believe that, but I now know
I
that
believe
at
it
least
for a second.
that at least the past World Baseball Classic, we continued the proud tradition of somebody deciding to defect. We had a defection. There was a defection. A Cuban player. He was a bullpen pitcher, which tells me,
Let's just hope he doesn't go to the minor leagues.
He's probably going to go to the minor leagues.
Yeah, which means he'll probably get a pay
You're
cut
looking for a
to go
better
there.
life. It's not going to happen.
Or he'll probably end up on,
leagues.
if he's lucky, he'll end up on pitching staff, which means maybe he'll make slightly more than what he made then.
Right.
Or
look, if he's a lefty and he's got a pulse, he might be all right.
yeah, that's literally all he can hope for at this point. Because Lord knows there's a lot of talented Hispanic ball players. You are not special, sir. You are not special.
And it is always funny. Like I always say, one of my wife's cousins, big baseball nut. Like, he and I were going back and forth about the whole stand up for the minor leagues. We were part of that trend on Twitter. One of the few things Twitter did well. And it was like when he had his son, I kept saying to him, like, dude, put everything in his left hand. Just everything in the left hand. You got to make him a left-handed pitcher. Come on, man. Me being a 5'2" right-handed pitcher, I didn't have a chance. Some scout shows up to look at my friend, and who couldn't make our pitching staff at high school because I was on it, but yet somehow went to college and then the major leagues as a pitcher.
Oh, that had to hurt.
Oh yeah. And the scout shows up, and he happens to show up on a day that I'm pitching, and I say to him, like, hey, what did you think of the way I pitched? He goes, man, you'd be awesome if you could just grow a foot. I look at, what the hell are you thinking? Yeah, That was his advice to me. Grow a foot.
Oh
Boy, I
dear.
haven't heard that yet today. Thanks, buddy.
Oh man. I mean, yo,
Uh,
like
That's the reason my
I
baseball
really
career wasn't going anywhere.
the
I
only
really don't
the
I
only foot
really
I'm growing is outward. Like,
Yeah, I've
like,
grown a foot since
sir,
then. It was the other way, but yeah.
I don't like I really don't understand why cis het men have problems with gay people, because the way y'all read each other and hurt each other's feelings,
that's a very drag queen thing to do.
it is
Yeah.
hella draggy. Hella draggy.
Yeah,
This ain't
I mean,
yeah,
I
you
heard
would be a
that, and
great picture if you grew another foot.
I looked at it and I said,
Damn.
but I can get everybody out. And it's like, yeah, but you're not 6'4" and throwing over 100 miles an hour. Yeah, but nobody can hit my stuff, so what's it matter? And
You're not cute. It's partially marketing can't do anything with you, and we already got too many dead Pete's on this shit, and we don't have, and we need
yeah,
we need something to justify our marketing budget, fam.
and it's like apparently some 5'2" white European mutt with a Napoleon complex wasn't good enough.
I mean, basketball already had Bugsy Bogues. They were not
That's what I
interested.
said. I'm just like, well, what about Muggsy? They said, great, can you dunk a basketball? I said, dude, I can't see a 10-foot rim, let alone reach it.
Come on, you've got what, a 4-inch vertical leap?
Yeah, about 4 inch, maybe then. Right now, about 2.5, maybe.
Well, I think that should probably
On that note,
I think we covered all the shit we gonna cover today.
unless anybody wants to
So,
hear more
I'm
about
just
my
gonna-
misguided high school sports career.
We're good.
next time. So I'm just gonna check the feed one last time. It looks like breaking news: Henry Kissinger is somehow still not dead.
God damn it. Well, at least Jimmy Carter's still alive, and that's all we can ask for at this
Just say
point.
right now, real quick before
Henry
we get out of here,
Kissinger,
my apologies to Jimmy Carter for everything nasty I've ever said.
we're gonna have a whole apology episode,
Okay.
along with an entire "I'm glad you're dead" episode for Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, when it happens, it happens. But anyway, Henry Kissinger's not dead, and that's a bunch of bullshit. Good night.
Night. Oh my god.
So, I
Yeah.
That was great.